The alarm bells rang through the monitoring station like angry metal birds. Chief Communications Officer Veltar lifted his forearms from the console and stared at the flashing red lights. In his 20 years of service with the Zephyrian Trade Coalition, he had never seen the equipment act this way. "What is causing this noise?" he asked his assistant, a young Belcarian named Jex who had only started working there 3 months ago. Jex checked his screens with nervous fingers. "Sir, we are picking up a transmission. It is very strong. Stronger than anything we have seen before." Veltar moved to the main console. His race was known for being calm in difficult situations. The Zephyrians had been monitoring space communications for over 200 years. They knew every signal type, every frequency, every standard message format used by the known civilizations. "Show me," he said. The speakers crackled with static. Then a voice came through. It spoke in a language that Veltar had never heard before. The words were sharp and clear, but they made no sense to him. "Computer, identify the language," Veltar commanded. The computer hummed for several seconds. "Language unknown. Beginning analysis of speech patterns and grammar structure." Veltar frowned. Unknown languages were rare, very rare. Most civilizations in this part of the galaxy had been in contact for centuries. New species usually sent out signals in the common trade languages first. "Where is this transmission coming from?" he asked Jex. "That is the strange part, sir. It is not coming from one location. It is broadcasting on all frequencies across 3 star systems. The signal is so powerful that it is reaching us from over 50 light-years away." Veltar felt a cold feeling in his stomach. No civilization had that kind of broadcasting power. Even the Great Hegemony Defense Fleet could only send signals that strong from their largest command ships. The computer beeped. "Initial translation complete. The message appears to be a warning. Put it on the main screen," Veltar ordered. The words appeared in glowing letters across the display. "Warning, a human warship is en route. Utter annihilation awaits." Veltar stared at the message. Then he started laughing. Jex looked at him with confusion. "Sir, is something funny?" "Humans," Veltar said, wiping tears from his eyes. "This is about humans." "I do not understand, sir." Veltar called up the galactic database on his screen. "Look here, Jex, humans, species designation, primitive. Technology level, pre-FTL. Location, Sol System, Outer Rim Territories. Status, quarantined for their own protection." Jex read the information carefully. "It says here that humans have not developed faster than light travel. They are still trapped in their home system." "Exactly," Veltar said. "And according to this, their most advanced weapons are chemical explosives and simple energy devices. They barely have space stations around their home planet." The message continued to repeat on the speakers. The voice was calm and steady, but there was something in it that made Veltar feel uncomfortable. It sounded very sure of itself. "Sir, should we report this to the Hegemony Council?" Jex asked. Veltar thought about it. The council met every week to discuss threats to the coalition's territory. They took security very seriously. But they also did not like to waste time on jokes or false alarms. "Send them a copy of the transmission," he decided, "but mark it as low priority. Probably someone playing a trick with old human radio signals." The next few hours passed quietly. Veltar went back to his normal work of monitoring trade routes and checking for pirates. But the human message kept playing in his mind. There was something about the voice that bothered him. Late in his shift, another alarm started beeping. This time it was the deep space sensors. "Jex, what is the sensor array detecting?" Jex looked at his instruments with a puzzled expression. "Sir, there is something strange in hyperspace. The sensors are picking up ripples." "What kind of ripples?" "I am not sure, sir. The computer says the readings are impossible. According to our physics, these ripples should not exist." Veltar felt that cold feeling in his stomach again. "Show me the readings." The data appeared on his screen. Veltar had studied hyperspace physics in school. He knew that ships traveling through hyperspace left small traces like footprints in mud. But these readings showed something different. The ripples were huge and they were moving faster than anything should be able to move. "Computer, calculate the speed of the object causing these ripples," he ordered. Calculating. The object appears to be traveling at approximately 15 times the maximum safe hyperspace speed. Veltar and Jex looked at each other. 15 times the safe speed would tear any known ship apart. The forces involved would crush even the strongest metals into dust. "That cannot be right," Veltar said. "Run the calculation again." Calculation confirmed. The object is maintaining this speed and heading directly for the Tertius system. The Tertius system was one of the Coalition's most important trade centers. It had 3 inhabited planets and over 50 space stations. Millions of beings lived and worked there. Veltar made a decision. Send an urgent message to the Hegemony Council. Tell them we have an unknown object approaching Tertius at impossible speeds, and tell them it might be connected to the human transmission. Within an hour, Veltar received a reply from the Council. The message was short and not very polite. Council leader Vraktos had written, "Impossible speeds mean impossible readings. Check your equipment. As for humans, they are a joke. Do not waste the Council's time with stories about primitive species." But Veltar noticed that the Council had quietly ordered increased patrols around Tertius. Whatever they said in public, they were taking the threat seriously. The human transmission continued broadcasting. Now other monitoring stations across the galaxy were picking it up. Some were translating it into different languages. Others were trying to trace its source. But no one could find where it was coming from. Veltar stayed late at his post that night. He watched the sensor readings as the mysterious object moved through hyperspace. Whatever it was getting closer to Tertius. And according to his calculations, it would arrive in less than 2 days. He tried to sleep, but the human voice kept echoing in his mind. Warning. A human warship is en route. Utter annihilation awaits. The voice had sounded so certain, so confident, like it knew exactly what was going to happen. For the first time in his career, Veltar began to wonder if the galactic database might be wrong about humans. The readings his equipment was showing were impossible according to known science. But the equipment was working perfectly. As he finally drifted off to sleep, one thought kept bothering him. If humans really were as primitive as the database said, then who was broadcasting that message? And what was traveling toward Tertius at impossible speeds? The next morning brought no answers, only more questions, and the steady, calm voice repeating its warning across the stars. Warning. A human warship is en route. Utter annihilation awaits. Admiral Kethra stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Triumphant Dawn, watching the stars through the main viewing window. His scales caught the light from the navigation displays, making him look like a warrior from the old stories. He had commanded the Hegemony Defense Fleet for 12 years and had never lost a battle. The message from the Council had been simple. An unknown object was approaching the Tertius system. His orders were to intercept it and follow standard first contact protocols, show overwhelming force, make the newcomers understand their place in the galactic order, then begin integration procedures. Kethras had done this many times before. New species often thought they were special when they first developed faster than light travel. They arrived in Coalition space full of pride and confidence. A few demonstrations of superior firepower usually changed their minds quickly. "Admiral, the fleet is in position," reported his tactical officer, a efficient Vorthon named Dexim. Kethras looked at the tactical display. 12 ships hung in space around him. Battle cruisers, destroyers, and support vessels. The most advanced ships in the known galaxy. Their combined firepower could destroy entire planets. "Good," he said. "Remind me what we know about this approaching vessel." Dexim checked his data pad. "Very little, sir. Deep space sensors show an object traveling at impossible speeds through hyperspace. The energy signature is unlike anything in our databases, and there have been transmissions in an unknown language claiming to be from humans." "Humans," Kethras repeated. He had looked up the species after receiving his orders. Primitive creatures from the outer rim. Pre-FTL technology. How could they possibly have a ship capable of hyperspace travel? "Unknown, sir. Perhaps they received help from another species. Or perhaps the database information is outdated." Kethras nodded. It had happened before. Sometimes the galactic surveys missed important developments. A species could advance quickly if they found ancient technology, or made contact with more advanced civilizations. "Sir, we are detecting hyperspace distortions," announced the sensor operator. "Something is about to arrive." "All ships to battle stations," Kethras ordered. "Shields up, weapons ready, but do not fire unless I give the order." The space in front of them began to shimmer and twist. Hyperspace exits usually looked like brief flashes of light. This was different. Reality seemed to bend and stretch like heated metal. Colors that had no names swirled through the darkness. Then it happened. A ship dropped out of hyperspace, and Kethras felt his breath catch in his throat. The vessel was like nothing he had ever seen. It was sleek and deadly, shaped like a hunting knife made of dark metal. Strange patterns covered its hull, patterns that seemed to shift and move when he looked at them directly. The ship was huge, easily as large as his own flagship, but it moved with the grace of a small fighter. "Sir, I'm reading massive energy signatures from that vessel," the sensor operator said, his voice shaking slightly. "Power output is—" "Sir, this cannot be correct." "What are the readings?" "The ship's main reactor appears to be generating power equal to our entire fleet combined." Kethra stared at the alien vessel. That was impossible. No single ship could generate that much power. The reactor alone would be larger than most space stations. "Admiral, we are receiving a transmission," the communications officer announced. "Put it on the main speakers." A voice filled the bridge. It spoke in clear, simple words that the translation computers had no trouble understanding. The voice was calm and steady, but there was something underneath it that made Kethris think of deep water and sharp teeth. "This is Captain Chen of the Human Space Navy vessel Retribution. You are in violation of protected space. This is your final warning. Withdraw immediately or face the consequences." Kethris almost laughed. 1 ship against 12. Even if the humans had somehow developed advanced technology, they were outnumbered. Mathematics was mathematics. "Open a channel," he ordered. "Channel open, sir." "Human vessel Retribution, this is Admiral Kethris of the Hegemony Defense Fleet. You are trespassing in Coalition space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be boarded. Comply immediately or we will use force." There was a pause. Then Captain Chen's voice returned and Kethris could hear something new in it. Disappointment. "Admiral, I really hoped you would choose wisdom. Stand down your fleet and withdraw. I will not ask again." "You are 1 ship," Kethris replied. "We are 12. Do the mathematics." "Mathematics," Captain Chen repeated softly. "Yes, let's talk about mathematics." The human ship began to move. Not the slow, careful movements of a military vessel preparing for battle. This was something else entirely. The Retribution seemed to flow through space like liquid mercury. It changed direction without slowing down, moved in ways that should have been impossible according to physics. "Sir, their inertial compensators must be operating far beyond known specifications," Dexam said. "The forces involved should crush any crew inside that ship." "All ships surround the human vessel," Kethris ordered. "Show them our strength." The Coalition fleet moved into position, 12 ships forming a perfect sphere around the single human vessel. It was an impressive sight. The firepower of 3 civilizations focused on one target. "Sir, shall we fire a warning shot?" Dexam asked. "Negative. Full bombardment. All ships open fire." The space around the Retribution lit up with energy beams and particle weapons, 12 ships firing at once, their combined assault enough to crack a moon. The human ship disappeared in a ball of light and destruction. For a moment, Kethris thought it was over. Then the light faded and the Retribution was still there. Its shields had held against everything they could throw at it. "Impossible," Dexam whispered. The human ship turned toward the triumphant dawn. For the first time, Kethris could see the details of its hull clearly. Weapons covered every surface, but they were unlike anything in Coalition databases. They looked organic somehow, like they had grown rather than been built. "Admiral," Captain Chen's voice came over the speakers. "You have fired upon a human space navy vessel." "That was a mistake." The Retribution opened fire. The first shot hit the Coalition destroyer Swift Victory. There was no explosion, no dramatic destruction. The ship simply stopped working. Its weapons went dark, its engines shut down, its shields collapsed. It hung in space like a dead whale. The second shot disabled the battlecruiser Iron Fist. The third took out 2 ships at once. Each shot was perfectly placed, targeting the most important systems with surgical precision. "Return fire," Kethres shouted. "All ships concentrate on their weapons." But the human ship was no longer where their guns were pointed. It moved through their formation like a dancer, avoiding their shots while systematically dismantling their fleet. Within minutes, 8 ships were disabled. "Sir, they are not trying to destroy us," Dexam realized. "They are disabling our ships without killing anyone." Kethris understood then. The humans were not just winning. They were being merciful. They had the power to destroy his entire fleet in seconds, but they were choosing not to. They were making a point. "All ships retreat," he ordered. "Sir, I cannot comply," his pilot reported. "Our engines have been disabled." Kethris looked around his bridge. Every system was still working except for weapons and engines. The lights were on, life support was functioning, communications were clear. The humans had targeted exactly what they needed to target and nothing more. "Captain Chen," he said into his microphone, "I surrender." "Wise choice, Admiral," came the reply. "Now we can talk like civilized beings." The Coalition fleet hung in space like broken toys. 12 ships, the pride of 3 civilizations, now drifted helplessly with their weapons dark and engines cold. Admiral Kethra stood on his bridge trying to understand what had just happened. His tactical officer, Dexam, was staring at his instruments with disbelief. "Sir, the humans disabled our entire fleet in under 4 minutes. Their targeting was perfect. They hit exactly the systems they wanted to hit and nothing else." Kethris nodded slowly. In all his years of military service, he had never seen anything like it. The human ship had moved through their formation like it was dancing, avoiding their fire while systematically taking apart their ability to fight back. "Show me the damage reports," he ordered. The data appeared on his screen. Every ship in the fleet had the same story. Weapons systems destroyed with surgical precision. Engines disabled but not destroyed. Life support systems untouched. Communications working perfectly. They wanted us alive, he realized. They could have killed us all, but they chose not to. "Sir, we are receiving another transmission from the human vessel," the communications officer announced. "Put it through." Captain Chen's voice filled the bridge again. It was still calm and steady, but now Kethris could hear something else in it. Disappointment, maybe, or sadness. "Admiral Kethras, I'm going to dock with your ship. We need to talk face to face. Please have your security team stand down. I am coming alone and I am not armed." Kethris looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him, waiting for orders. Standard military protocol said never to allow enemy personnel aboard your ship. But nothing about this situation was standard. "Sir," Dexam said quietly, "he destroyed our entire fleet without killing anyone. If he wanted us dead, we would already be dead." "I know," Kethris replied. He activated his communicator. "Captain Chen, you may dock. But I warn you, if this is a trick—" "No tricks, Admiral. Just 2 soldiers talking about a problem that affects us all." The Retribution moved closer to the triumphant dawn. Up close, Kethras could see more details of the human ship. The hull was covered with symbols and markings that seemed to shift when he looked at them directly. Weapons ports lined every surface, but they were closed now, showing that the ship was no longer in combat mode. "Sir, they are extending a docking tube," the docking officer reported. "Allow them to dock, but keep security teams on standby." 20 minutes later, Kethra stood in the main docking bay with a squad of his best guards. The airlock door opened with a soft hiss and the human stepped through. Captain Chen looked nothing like what Kethris had expected. The databases had described humans as primitive creatures, barely civilized. But the being who walked into his ship looked calm, confident, and intelligent. He was wearing a simple uniform with no visible weapons, and he moved with the easy grace of someone who was completely comfortable in dangerous situations. "Admiral Kethris," Chen said, stopping a few meters away. "Thank you for agreeing to meet with me." "You destroyed my fleet," Kethris replied. "I had little choice." "I disabled your fleet," Chen corrected gently. "Your ships can be repaired. Your crews are all alive and unhealthy. That was a choice I made." The human looked around the docking bay, taking in the alien technology and architecture. His expression was curious rather than hostile. "You seem surprised that I came alone and unarmed," Chen continued. "Let me explain something about humans, Admiral. We have a saying, the strong should protect the weak. It is one of our most important beliefs. Protect the weak?" Kethras repeated. "You just attacked a coalition fleet." "I defended myself and others from a coalition fleet," Chen replied. "There is a difference." The human gestured toward the sealed door leading to the ship's interior. "May we talk privately? I have things to tell you that will be difficult to believe." Kethris considered it. Every military instinct told him to refuse. But something about the human's manner made him curious. Chen was treating him with respect, even though he had just defeated an entire fleet. "Very well, but my guards come with us." "Of course." They walked through the corridors of the triumphant dawn toward Kethris's private office. The human looked around with interest, occasionally asking questions about the ship's design or technology. He seemed genuinely curious about how coalition ships worked. In his office, Kethris gestured for Chen to sit in the chair across from his desk. The guards positioned themselves by the door. "Now," Kethris said, "explain to me how a primitive species from the Outer Rim built a ship that can defeat my entire fleet." Chen smiled, and there was something sad about it. "That is the first thing I need to correct, Admiral. Humans are not primitive. We never were." He reached into his uniform and pulled out a small device. Kethris tensed, but Chen held up his free hand. "Just a holographic projector," he said. "May I?" Kethris nodded. Chen activated the device, and a three-dimensional star map appeared above the desk. It showed the local sector of the galaxy, with trade routes and political boundaries marked in different colors. "This is what your people see," Chen said. "Coalition space, hegemony territories, independent systems, civilized space." He touched the device, and the map changed. New markers appeared, scattered throughout the galaxy. "This is what humans see." The new markers were everywhere. Hidden bases, listening posts, research stations. They were in every major system, watching everything. "We have been here for centuries," Chen continued. "Watching, learning, studying. Your people think of us as primitive because that is what we wanted you to think." Kethris stared at the map. "Impossible. Our sensors would have detected your installations." "Your sensors detect what we allow them to detect," Chen replied. "We have been studying your technology for over 300 years. We know how your equipment works better than you do." The human touched the device again, and the map zoomed in on the Sol system. Instead of a primitive civilization struggling to reach their own moon, the display showed massive orbital installations, shipyards that could build vessels the size of moons, and technology that made coalition science look like stone tools. "But why?" Kethris asked. "Why hide? With technology like this, you could have conquered the galaxy centuries ago." "Because conquest is not our goal," Chen said simply. "We watched the galaxy, Admiral. We saw how your civilizations deal with weaker species. Conquest, slavery, forced integration. We decided that was not the path we wanted to follow." Chen stood and walked to the viewing window. Outside, the disabled coalition ships drifted in space. "For 300 years, we stayed hidden and protected the species you would have destroyed. When the hegemony attacked the Kelric homeworld, human ships were there to help them evacuate. When coalition slavers tried to raid the Theta colonies, they found their ships mysteriously disabled. We have been your guardian angels, keeping you from becoming the monsters you could have been." "Then why reveal yourselves now?" Kethris demanded. Chen turned back to face him. "Because you finally crossed a line we could not ignore. Your expansion has reached systems we have been protecting for centuries. 12 developing civilizations live in the space you claim as yours. We will not allow them to be destroyed or enslaved." The human walked back to the desk and deactivated the holographic projector. "The Retribution is not even a warship by human standards," he said quietly. "It is a patrol vessel. A police ship. If you force us to bring our real military assets into this conflict, the result will not be a disabled fleet. It will be the end of the coalition as a political entity." Kethris felt cold fear creeping up his spine. "You are threatening us." "I am warning you," Chen corrected. "The same way we warned you with that transmission. We always give our enemies a chance to choose a better path." The human moved toward the door, then stopped and looked back. "I am going to release your fleet, Admiral. Your ships will be repaired automatically by nanobots my people have placed in your systems. You will be able to return to Coalition space with a message for your leaders." "What message?" "Tell them that the galaxy has changed. Tell them that there is now a species that will not allow the strong to prey upon the weak, and tell them that they have a choice to make." Chen smiled again, and this time there was hope in it along with the sadness. "Tell them that humans are willing to work with anyone who shares our values, but we will fight anyone who threatens the innocent." The human left the office, and Kethris sat alone with his thoughts. Outside his window, the Retribution was already moving away, heading back toward human space. For the first time in his military career, Admiral Kethris was not sure his side would win the war that was coming. Admiral Kethris sat in his command chair, watching the stars through the main viewing window of the triumphant dawn. 3 days had passed since his encounter with Captain Chen, and his ship systems were working perfectly again. The human had been true to his word. Invisible nanobots had repaired every damaged system, leaving the Coalition fleet fully functional. But the Admiral felt anything but functional. The conversation with Chen played over and over in his mind. the casual way the human had revealed the scope of their surveillance, the sad smile when he talked about protecting the weak, the absolute confidence in his voice when he described human military capabilities. "Sir, we are receiving a priority transmission from the Hegemony Council," his communications officer announced. "Put it through to my private office," Kethris ordered. In his office, the holographic image of Council Leader Vraktos appeared above his desk. The old politician looked angry and impatient. "Admiral, your report makes no sense," Vraktos began without greeting. "You claim that a single primitive vessel defeated your entire fleet, that humans have been secretly watching us for centuries. This sounds like the fantasy of a commander trying to explain a humiliating defeat." Kethris had expected this reaction. "Sir, with respect, I recommend that the Council review the sensor data I transmitted. The evidence speaks for itself." "Evidence can be faked," Vraktos replied. "What cannot be faked is military reality. We have a dozen species in our intelligence network. None of them have reported advanced human activity. Our deep space monitors would have detected large-scale shipbuilding or military movements. Sir, the humans showed me a map of their installations. They have been hiding from our sensors for centuries." Vraktos made a dismissive gesture. "Admiral, you are suffering from shock. It is understandable. Being defeated can affect a soldier's judgment. Return to base immediately for medical evaluation." The transmission ended, leaving Kethris alone with his frustration. The Council would not listen. They could not accept that their understanding of the galaxy was completely wrong. But Kethris had seen the human ship move through space like a living thing. He had felt the power radiating from its hull. He had looked into Captain Chen's eyes and seen absolute certainty. The humans were not bluffing. 2 weeks later, Kethris stood in the council chambers on the capital world of Hegemon Prime. The room was filled with representatives from dozens of species, all of them listening as he gave his official report. "The human vessel demonstrated technology far beyond our current capabilities," he said, reading from his prepared statement. "Their shields withstood the combined firepower of 12 ships. Their weapons disabled our entire fleet without causing casualties. Their propulsion systems operate on principles we do not understand." Council Leader Vraktos leaned forward in his chair. "Admiral, you keep saying their technology. We are talking about one ship. Even if humans have somehow developed advanced science, one ship cannot threaten the entire coalition." "Sir, Captain Chen made it very clear that the Retribution was not a military vessel by human standards. He called it a patrol ship." Murmurs of disbelief filled the chamber. Several council members laughed openly. "Admiral," said Councillor Thekvar of the Belkarian Trade Union, "you are asking us to believe that humans have a fleet of ships more advanced than anything we have ever seen, and they have kept this fleet completely hidden for centuries." "Yes, sir. That is exactly what I am asking you to believe." "Impossible," declared Councillor Zalmoth of the Vorthan Republic. "Our intelligence services monitor every major shipyard in the galaxy. Construction of vessels that size would require massive industrial facilities. We would have detected them." Kethris activated his personal datapad and projected the star map Chen had shown him. "This is what the humans revealed to me. Their installations are everywhere, hidden from our sensors." The council members studied the map with growing skepticism. "This could be completely fabricated," Vraktos said finally. "Admiral, I believe you encountered an advanced ship, but I think it was built by one of our known enemies trying to frighten us. The hegemony has many rivals who would benefit from spreading fear about imaginary human fleets. Sir, I spoke with the captain face to face. He was definitely human." "Actors can be hired," Councillor Thekvar pointed out. "Surgery can change appearance. This entire encounter could have been staged." Kethris felt his frustration growing. "Sir, I recommend that we send diplomatic envoys to human space. Open formal communication. Test their claims." "We will do nothing of the sort," Vraktos declared. "We will not legitimize this obvious fraud by treating it seriously. The coalition's expansion will continue as planned." The council session ended with a formal vote. By overwhelming majority, they decided to ignore the human warning and proceed with their territorial expansion. Only Kethris voted against the decision. As the representatives filed out of the chamber, Councillor Thekvar approached Kethris. "Admiral, a word of advice," the Belkarian said quietly. "Your military career depends on accepting reality. The reality is that humans are primitive creatures who pose no threat to the coalition." Continue to insist otherwise, and you will find yourself commanding a cargo hauler in the outer rim. Kethris nodded politely, but inside he felt only sadness. The Council was making the same mistake that countless civilizations had made throughout history. They were letting their pride blind them to danger. 3 months later, the expansion began. Coalition fleets moved into the disputed systems, claiming them for the hegemony. Advanced survey teams landed on 12 worlds that the humans had claimed were under their protection. For the first week, everything went smoothly. The primitive species on these worlds offered no resistance to coalition forces. Mining operations began. Trade agreements were signed. The Council declared the expansion a complete success. Then the reports started coming in. Mining equipment malfunctioned in ways that could not be explained. Computer systems crashed without cause. Communications arrays went offline for hours at a time. Transport ships lost their navigation systems and had to be rescued by emergency crews. At first, the Coalition blamed technical difficulties. But the problems were too widespread and too specific. Someone was sabotaging their operations with technology they could not detect. On the colony world of Kepler-7, an entire mining facility simply vanished overnight. 2,000 workers, hundreds of machines, and a massive processing plant disappeared without a trace. Security cameras showed nothing. Sensors detected no ships or transport vehicles. The facility was simply there one day and gone the next. The Coalition sent investigation teams, but they found nothing. No signs of struggle, no evidence of attack, no clues about what had happened. The mining facility and everyone in it had vanished as completely as if they had never existed. Similar incidents began happening throughout the disputed systems. Coalition personnel disappeared. Equipment stopped working. Entire bases went dark and were found empty when rescue teams arrived. Council leader Vraktos called an emergency session. For the first time since Kethris had known him, the old politician looked worried. "Admiral," he said, "I want your honest assessment. Is this the work of the humans?" Kethris had been expecting this question for weeks. "Sir, I believe it is. The pattern matches what Captain Chen told me. They are protecting the species in those systems. But our sensors detect nothing. No ships, no weapons, no hostile activity. Sir, the humans have had centuries to perfect their stealth technology. They can operate invisibly when they choose to." Vraktos was quiet for a long moment. Around the council chamber, other representatives watched and waited. "What do you recommend, Admiral?" "Withdraw from the disputed systems immediately. Open formal diplomatic channels with human space. Negotiate a peaceful solution. And if the Council refuses," Kethris thought about Captain Chen's sad smile. About the casual way he had revealed the scope of human power. About the warning that had started it all. "Then we will learn the price of arrogance," he said quietly. "And that price may be higher than we are prepared to pay." The emergency session of the Galactic Assembly had been called by the Zephyrian Trade Coalition after 3 more of their mining colonies disappeared overnight. Representatives from 47 different species filled the Great Hall on Nexus Station, the neutral meeting place where interstellar disputes were usually resolved through diplomacy rather than warfare. Admiral Kethris stood at the speaker's podium, looking out at the assembled delegates. Many of them were the same beings who had laughed at his warnings 6 months ago. They were not laughing now. "Honored delegates," he began, "the situation has reached a critical point. In the past month alone, we have lost contact with 17 coalition installations. Over 50,000 personnel have disappeared without a trace. Our expansion into the disputed systems has been completely halted." Murmurs of concern rippled through the assembly. Many species had been watching the coalition's problems with growing worry. If humans could make entire colonies vanish, what could they do to other civilizations? "The pattern is clear," Kethris continued. "Every installation that has disappeared was located in a system containing primitive species under human protection. The humans are keeping their promise to defend the weak." Councillor Thekvar of the Belkarian Trade Union rose from his seat. "Admiral, you still have no proof that humans are responsible for these incidents. For all we know, these colonies were destroyed by natural disasters or hostile alien species. Natural disasters do not target only coalition facilities while leaving native populations untouched," Kethris replied. "And hostile aliens do not possess technology advanced enough to make entire bases vanish without detection." As if summoned by his words, an alarm began sounding throughout the station. The assembly's security chief hurried to the main podium and whispered urgently to the session moderator. "Delegates," the moderator announced, "we are receiving an incoming transmission on all frequencies. The source is unknown, but the signal is extremely powerful." The main viewing screen activated and Captain Chen's face appeared. He looked exactly the same as when Kethris had met him 6 months ago, calm and confident but with that underlying sadness in his eyes. "Representatives of the Galactic Assembly," Chen said, "I am Captain Chen of the Human Space Navy. I am speaking to you from the HSS Harmony, currently positioned 1 light year from your station." The security chief frantically checked his instruments and shook his head. Their sensors showed no ships in the area. "For centuries, humanity has watched the galaxy in silence," Chen continued. "We have seen civilizations rise and fall. We have witnessed the strong prey upon the weak countless times. We chose not to interfere, hoping that intelligent species would eventually learn to live in peace." The captain paused, and his expression became more serious. "Recent events have forced us to abandon our policy of non-interference. The Coalition's expansion into protected space cannot be allowed to continue. We have taken defensive measures, but we prefer to resolve the situation through diplomacy." Council leader Vraktos stood up, his face red with anger. "Human, you dare to threaten this assembly? You are one species against dozens. You cannot dictate terms to the entire galaxy." Chen's smile was patient but tired. "Councillor Vraktos, I am not dictating terms. I am offering you a choice. The same choice we have always offered. You can choose to respect the rights of weaker species, or you can face the consequences of your actions." "And what consequences might those be?" Vraktos demanded. The main screen split and a new image appeared alongside Chen's face. It showed the space around Nexus Station, but from an impossible perspective. The view was from above the galactic plane, looking down at the station and the ships surrounding it. What the delegates saw made them gasp in shock. Hundreds of ships hung in space around the station. Massive vessels that dwarfed anything in their fleets. Ships that had been completely invisible to their sensors until this moment. "This is a small fraction of our fleet," Chen said quietly. "These ships have been here for over an hour, watching your assembly. Your security systems detected nothing because we chose not to be detected." The viewing angle changed, showing more ships, then more. The space around Nexus Station was filled with human vessels, a fleet so vast that it seemed to stretch to infinity. "How many ships?" someone whispered. "Enough," Chen replied, apparently having heard the question. "We have had 300 years to prepare for this moment. We have built ships, trained crews, and developed technology that makes your most advanced science look primitive." Kethris found his voice. "Captain Chen, what do you want from us?" "The same thing we have always wanted, Admiral. Peace. Respect for the rights of all species. An end to the cycle of conquest and exploitation that has defined galactic politics for millennia." Chen leaned forward slightly, and his voice became more intense. "We propose a new galactic order, one based on cooperation rather than domination. Weak species will be protected, not enslaved. Disputes will be resolved through negotiation, not warfare. Resources will be shared fairly among all civilizations." "And if we refuse?" Vraktos asked. "Then you will discover why our ships are called the Protection Fleet," Chen replied. "Every species that refuses to respect the rights of others will find their expansion halted, their military forces disabled, their ability to harm the innocent removed." The captain gestured and the image changed again. This time it showed coalition ships drifting helplessly in space, their weapons dark and their engines cold. "This is the fate of the coalition's third fleet," Chen explained. "They attempted to retake one of the systems they had been forced to abandon. They were disabled without casualties and are currently being escorted back to coalition space." The delegates stared at the screen in shocked silence. The Third Fleet had been one of the coalition's most powerful military forces. If humans could disable it so easily, no one was safe. "However," Chen continued and his voice became warmer, "we are not interested in conquest or domination. Any species that agrees to respect the rights of others will find humanity to be a valuable ally. We offer advanced technology, scientific knowledge, and protection from those who would do you harm." Several delegates began talking among themselves. The offer was tempting, but the implied threat was terrifying. "What guarantee do we have," asked Councillor Zalmoth of the Vorthan Republic, "that you will not use this power to conquer us all?" "The same guarantee you have always had," Chen replied. "Our actions." For 300 years, we could have conquered the galaxy at any time. Instead, we chose to remain hidden and protect the innocent. Judge us by what we do, not by what we could do. The transmission continued for another hour. Captain Chen answered questions about human intentions, their technology, and their vision for the future. Some delegates were skeptical. Others were frightened, but all of them understood that the galaxy had changed forever. When the transmission ended, the assembly erupted in heated debate. Some species called for immediate surrender to human demands. Others wanted to form an alliance to resist human expansion. A few tried to argue that the entire thing was an elaborate hoax. Admiral Kethris listened to the arguments with growing frustration. Finally, he stood and called for order. "Honored delegates, we are debating the wrong question," he said. "The question is not whether we can resist the humans. Clearly, we cannot. The question is whether we want to live in a galaxy where the strong protect the weak, or continue living in one where the strong prey upon the weak." The hall fell silent. "I have seen human technology," Kethris continued. "I have spoken with their representatives. They are offering us something that no galactic power has ever offered before, a chance to be better than we are." Council leader Vraktos stood slowly. The old politician looked tired and defeated. "Admiral Kethris is correct," he said quietly. "We have a choice to make. Not as individual species, but as a galactic community." The vote was held 3 hours later. By a narrow margin, the Assembly agreed to accept human terms for a new galactic order. Some species voted out of hope for a better future. Others voted out of fear of human retaliation. But the result was the same. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, Kethris stood at the viewing window and looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, invisible human ships were already moving to enforce the new order. Pirates would find their vessels disabled. Slave traders would discover their operations shut down. Aggressive civilizations would learn the price of threatening their neighbors. For the first time in his life, Admiral Kethris believed that the galaxy might actually become a peaceful place, not because the strong had conquered the weak, but because the strong had finally chosen to protect them. The transmission that had started it all continued to broadcast across known space, but now it had new meaning. "Warning, a human warship is en route. Utter annihilation awaits" was no longer a threat to the innocent. It was a promise to those who would harm them. And in hidden shipyards throughout human space, more ships awakened. The protection fleet was ready to keep that promise for as long as the galaxy needed guardians. The age of conquest was over. The age of protection had begun.